Let me begin by saying happy birthday. I think for a 20-year-old, the WTO sometimes bears a very heavy burden, an immense responsibility for one of the greatest aspirations that I think we have tried through the multilateral framework of the WTO to address over the last 20 years, and that is to make a global economy, a global trading system, one that both yields opportunities in the narrow sense of economic progress and expanding trade. Therefore, Roberto, I want to begin by thanking you for having chosen this year, 2015, this 20th anniversary, as another moment when we sit together in this hall to do what we were established for, which is to help the world come to a more coherent trade regime. We are at a point in time where I think two things are redefining the nature of the debate and also the perception of this trade and environment nexus. Then let us acknowledge that we are facing perhaps the most far-reaching transformation in our economies that we have ever had to accomplish. In the course of economic development, with now 7 billion people consuming and producing on this planet, and soon another 3 billion being added to it, we have to reinvent our economies. And perhaps in our interaction, more importantly, what we can demonstrate is that in addressing issues such as global warming, land degradation, the overexploitation of our marine fisheries, the fact that food security is becoming a concern in so many respects, the efficiency of water use is something that is much closer in proximity of disrupting our economies than many would acknowledge. Our contribution in working together is to help minimize the risks and maximize the opportunities. We do need to look more carefully at what has changed. And I do believe that for many developing nations and emerging economies, the issue of environment today, while still a concern in the global trade context of trying to avoid tariff barriers or non-tariff barriers or distorting policies in terms of access to markets, is also increasingly being informed by the very real perception of risk of inaction on some of these environmental sustainability phenomena. The projection is that by the year 2020, the global market for environmental goods and services will be in the range of $3 trillion. This is a very significant shift from where we were 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. But in this rapidly evolving global marketplace for renewable energy technologies, we are facing very different interests, parameters, and challenges at this moment in time. With the embarking of China in developing its domestic renewable energy market and then its capacity to export, we have seen a massive reduction in costs of renewable energy technology. You are today able to enter into this technology market at a much lower threshold. This is a perfect illustration of what it is that we need to together address in terms of removing barriers, ensuring transparency indeed in this global marketplace, but also recognize that one of the solutions to addressing climate change is access to renewable energy. What we have seen just in the last few years is that the increase in renewable energy deployment is now becoming a game changer also for a continent like Africa. 49%, close to half of all new electricity generating infrastructure installed worldwide in 2014 was renewable energy, and that is excluding large-scale hydro. This is an energy revolution underway, and 50% of that investment, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, actually occurred in developing and emerging economies. Kenya is a pioneer in the green energy sector, and as of this year, 51% of its electricity is actually being produced by geothermal power. In September in New York, with the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, there will be a paradigm shift in global public policy. And two very significant strands of this shift are, on the one hand, integration of the economic, social, and environmental dimensions of development as never before. The issue of financing is increasingly one that we in UNEP are focusing on because we have recognized that the transition towards a green economy is now, in so many respects, happening already in countries across the planet. The ability to mobilize financial and capital markets to put in place conditions that do not lead to a predatory investment environment, but that also allow the mobilization of finance to underpin the kind of economic development strategies, including the capacity to trade effectively and competitively, is going to be critical. And therefore, I hope that as we move forward, we will also be able to answer a question that is particularly on the minds of developing nations. How will these investments become feasible, not just for some, but for everyone? Because without that, the notion of an equitable, sustainable, and functional trading regime are likely to be contested far more in the years to come than we have seen in the past. Changing realities are what we need to focus on. If we continue to try and deal with end-of-pipe pollution issues, if we try and address trade, environment, and sustainability issues from a defensive, territorial, and in a sense risk-dominated perspective, we will miss the opportunity, and that will cost countries very dearly in the future. Thank you once again, and happy birthday.